Welcome to another episode of Homeschool Moms Unfiltered. I am your host, Megan, and my amazing co-host is...
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hello. We are your source for messy, imperfect, real life, no judgment homeschool advice and community. We can help you absolutely rock homeschooling. Our whole mission is to help you feel confident and well-informed because taking on your kids' education is a big freaking deal. And you shouldn't feel like you have to just kind of muddle through this process blindly.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a sucky way to feel in general. But also, we started this whole thing because we wanted to help people find community, to know they aren't the only progressive homeschoolers out there trying to avoid religious curriculum. There are like a gazillion and one people out there sharing homeschool information because honestly, the community is growing by leaps and bounds. But the thing that makes us most different is that we don't do the influencer perfection spiel where you're supposed to learn to homeschool in a series of 20-second videos. And then we drop an affiliate link for you to buy this program that we definitely don't use. But hey, if you sign up with our link, we'll get $5 for it. So yeah, we'll sell it.
Yeah, that is not our jam. I watch the homeschool influencers whose jam that is, though, and they make a freaking fortune, but
that's it.
Not our jam.
We'd probably grow faster if we were those people, if we'd stop turning them down. Like, don't really love that program. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that sets us apart, though, honestly, is our experience, because between us, we have decades of experience in both education and homeschooling. I was on Instagram the other day and I saw this video and then I linked to the account. You know how it goes. And it's somebody who's charging for their services, and their oldest child is in kindergarten. And I'm like, say what now? Like, huh?
I mean, look, life is expensive out there. I fully support people having side hustles and trying to help support their family.
Mm-hmm.
But education and homeschool coaching with a kinder kiddo's worth of experience, I don't know. That feels kind of like putting a first-year med student in charge of your cancer treatment. I mean, look, I go to a teaching hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I am happy for them to be in the room and
Mm-hmm.
learning and participating, and I will 100% meet with them first so that they can practice and then have the doctor come in. But I'm still going to need the doctor to come in. There's a lot on the line. I'm going to need someone with a whole lot more experience leading the ship, right?
Yeah, the one who's made it to the finish line and then done a few cool down laps for extra time on the track. This is what I'm going to need.
Honestly, that's why the first chapter of our book that we just put out is called Why You Should Trust Us with Your Kids' Education. And look, it is not a short read. It might be the longest section and the longest chapter in the book. I'm not sure, because if you follow along with the podcast, you know we can be a bit verbose. But look, we want you to know who your sources are, both us, and we cited a lot of other sources as well. So yeah, we're not blowing smoke.
Yeah, so that makes us different than some of the influencers that you might be following. The other thing that sets us apart in the homeschool world is the fact, like Amanda said before, we are secular and we are progressive. I engaged in a conversation on Facebook yesterday with someone who quite literally said she was homeschooling her children for heaven, not Harvard. And yeah, I just keenly made me aware of how unique our space is, because we are wrapped up in homeschool conversations and homeschool research and meetings, coaching sessions every single day. And we come across some pretty batshit stuff out there. Right?
Yeah. Don't even get me started. Look, you have to talk me down from this soapbox, because if not, the whole episode will end up me just ranting about what a terrible, toxic place Facebook and honestly social media in general as a whole has become as of late. Mm-hmm. But you won't find any of that here. Now, mind you, when we say heaven, not Harvard, and roll our eyes or throw up a little in our mouth, we want you to know that if you're a Christian who believes in heaven, that's totally fine. You are welcome here. I don't church or synagogue or temple or any of those things, but we don't have a problem with your personal faith. As much as we take issue with the idea that somehow those two things, heaven or Harvard, are diametrically opposed to one another. Why? Why are there so many homeschoolers and incredibly vocal homeschoolers at that who believe education is this hoax or somehow a bad thing? Like, I don't, we're getting awfully close to a soapbox moment. I'm sorry.
It's true, right? I mean, Christian all you want, religion all you want, do your thing, right? As long as you're not hurting anybody, we're a-okay. And we also know, because we have conversations with Christians who are members of our audience or members of our community who listen to us, and they're feeling really isolated right now, and they're hurting a lot because something that's a very important aspect of their life has been co-opted by total and complete nut jobs. So we get it, and you're welcome here, because there's Christians who don't feel welcome in Christian spaces anymore as a result of that, which is the most unchristian thing I've ever heard of. But like,
But then also somehow bizarrely incredibly Christian, at least in the
right
United
at this,
States.
yes,
Very
exactly,
American
right?
Christian.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the deal. We're totally secular, but if you're a Jen Hamilton Christian, a Mr. Rogers Christian, Mr. Rogers was a minister or a pastor, or I don't know the terminology, but one of those things. A Jimmy Carter Christian who's out there swinging a hammer when you're like 95 and you've just had skin cancer surgery. I can't. A Dolly Parton Christian giving kids books. You are welcome here. Just because we don't church and we don't recommend religious resources and all that kind of stuff doesn't mean you can't hang here. You're totally welcome.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Our firm line is that we don't agree to disagree when it comes to human rights, but that doesn't mean you can't have personal belief and have religion as part of your life. You're welcome to that. But to be clear, here in this space in Homeschool Moms Unfiltered land, we start every episode off with a statement of values. It changes depending on what's happening, but we're going to start with saying we wholeheartedly support abortion as healthcare and a person's right to manage their own damn uterus. We fully support your right to love any consenting adult you want to and identify to the world in whatever way allows you to live peacefully and confidently in your own skin, your own body. We may personally be two white moms here, but you do you, and we will be here to support you every step of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd also be remiss, though, if we didn't acknowledge the recent death of Nolan Wells specifically. Now, because of our recording schedule, this won't air for a couple of weeks. And so at that point, it might be like, wow, could they be any later to saying something here? And so just understand that this was recorded earlier, please. But when it is released, it will still be recent and we will still be closely following updates to this case. But I just cannot stop thinking about that poor child's mother. I mean, I'm sure he had a tremendous circle of people who loved him and who are hurting right now. But as a mother, I can't even fathom it. I can't fathom the pain that she's experiencing and the whole situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole situation is both infuriating and disgusting. And while violence against Black and Brown Americans and the loss of a young Black man is nothing new, the infuriating and devastating theme is just a perpetual state of existence right now. If you are an informed individual, especially an informed individual living in the United States, senseless gun violence at food festivals and trigger happy ICE agents in the streets and missing public servants. Hello, Mitch McConnell, we're looking at you. And outright lies coming out as official statements and policy stances from the United States government. Life in 2026 is one long stream of WTF moments right now. And truly, I swing back and forth between wanting to rage, then take action, and then wanting to hide in my bed under the blankets with a good escapist book. It's hard. It's fucking hard.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, I have the luxury of not being in the United States anymore, but obviously my algorithm is still filled with American media. And unfortunately, two of my children are going to the US next month, but one of them is very brown. And so I'm like, okay. But I still think I have a tremendous luxury of not being in it. There's a difference of being outside, the air is different. The air is
Yeah.
lighter for me where I am. So it's a big difference. But yeah. And so none of that should be swept under the rug. It's not like we're like, well, life is awful, but moving on. So that's not our vibe. But today we are going to try to do our best to provide some comfort in the one area that we are best at, which is homeschool advice. So today, we are going to be covering our individual plans for the 2026-2027 school year. We've done this in previous years as well, where we share what we have planned, what resources we'll be using, how and why we've made the decisions that we've made, and all that good kind of stuff, in the hopes that there's something in there that might ring true or be helpful for you.
Well, yeah, totally. And it's always a fun episode each year. So I'm looking forward to it. But first, we begin all of our episodes with a weekly recap. If you've been listening, you know this is part of our keeping it real vibe around here. We share our highs and our lows so that when you have the lows, you don't think that it's just you or that you suck at homeschooling or you're not cut out for this. When influencers and content creators only share their highest of highs, those kind of social media perfect highlight reels, it can be really detrimental to people living in the real world with real lives. So, with that in mind, how's your week been?
Oh man. Okay. How has my week been? Well, first of all, I'm freaking exhausted. I'm just exhausted. I do think I've got a little bit of a virus. I don't know if it's perimenopause, endovirus, life in general. I don't know, but I'm tired. So more tired than my usual levels of tired, which is still tired. So yeah, I'm just tired. Let's see. I rearranged my room. If you watch the video on the regular, you'll notice I have a really boring, ugly background going on right now because it's a work in progress. I have a giant bruise on my arm. If you watch the video, that's from furniture moving. So I had put a sewing table in my room a while ago, which is a real lack of ADHD self-awareness because ADHDers and surfaces don't do well. They become shit collectors very, very quickly. And it wasn't even so much that I was shit collecting on my own table, but it was like, I don't know what to do with this. We'll put it on this table and mom will figure out what to do with it kind of situation sometimes. And it was just an endless source of frustration. And then the other thing is I was telling Amanda, we live in a tiny apartment in a city. So I don't have this big open concept. I can move from room to room when I need a change of scenery type of thing. We have a living room and I have my bedroom. Everyone else has a bedroom. That's it. That's the whole apartment. And sometimes my kids would be using the living room for stuff that wasn't appropriate for me to be holding meetings in there and stuff. And so I was in my bed like way more than I think is psychologically healthy to be in your bed during the day working and then at night sleeping and stuff. So I reorganized. I found a cute little sofa on Facebook Marketplace for €35. So I'm super excited about that. I bought a new cover for it on Vinted, a new quote unquote. I mean, it's not from Vinted, but anyway, I'm going to put a new cover on it when it finally arrives. And then I'll put some artwork up behind me in the next couple of weeks and I'll jazz it up. So it'll look better soon enough. But the whole energy in my room has gotten better as a result. Like I shifted where my bed is. And so I'm very happy. Yeah. I went to the eye doctor. I have discovered that letters and numbers have edges and that I am older than I realized. I can see again, which is amazing. So that's been fun. Yeah. I mean, I still have a giant hole in my tooth that I can feel with my tongue and I'm afraid to go to the dentist. And I went months ago for them just to x-ray it and be like, yeah, there's a giant hole in your tooth that shouldn't be there. And I was like, I knew that. But then I haven't made an appointment to get it fixed because I'm afraid of the dentist. So, which by the way, I'm afraid of all doctors. So if you're going to start sending me messages about why I'm tired and I should have my thyroid checked, please don't. I will tailspin on a level that is so unhealthy. So please don't. That is not good for me. Yeah. My oldest kiddo leaves for camp the day after this airs. So that's exciting for him, minus the fact that he's 6 feet tall and a Hispanic looking man. That part is very stressful for me for him to go into the United States right now. But yeah, my youngest kiddo is still at camp at the time we're recording this, a little bit ahead of the airing. Minimal updates. How's camp? Good. What'd you do today? Math, because he's at math and physics camp. So, it was a very expensive camp. And so I'm like, if I get the number of updates and the words in the updates, it's coming out to like a lot of dollars per update if I do the math that way.
That does not sound like a good thing for your anxiety in general.
I know. Well, I'm actually kind of in like a no news is good news type of, what I mean? If things were not good. Yeah. So
that's
I'm
what
like,
I was going to say. Every day without a breakdown, that's like a big win.
Exactly.
I would say, yeah.
He's in England for camp. They went to Stratford yesterday for a field trip. And I mean, it's a math
Nice.
and physics camp. So primarily they're doing math and physics, but on Wednesdays and then on weekends, they have field trip days. So but today was back to math and physics. But yeah, yesterday he went to Stratford. I thought they were going to London yesterday. So I checked in with him last night. I'm like, how was London? He goes, I didn't go to London. I was like, okay. Apparently I read the schedule wrong. Apparently that's this weekend. So
Oh,
yeah.
well.
Yeah. And then my daughter and her boyfriend were supposed to be doing takeout and a movie tonight, but he got a funky virus of some sort. So he's not here, which is good because I was really like, how am I going to record the podcast and be focused and talk while also holding a glass up to the shared wall between me and the living room and like listening to make sure that you're actually watching a movie and eating takeout. So that has been moved to a future date. But yeah, just life, busy, but it is what it is. So things are good. Things could always be worse. So how about you? What's new in your world?
Let's see. If you're listening to this on the day that it actually drops, I should be on an airplane headed to Peru for 9 days of very intense adventure. If you're listening and you're like, my God, she's not gone on this trip yet. Can she just go already? I'm going and it'll be done soon. I've got my compression socks and my salty snacks for my pots and a new pair of lightweight trail shoes ready to go. I'm trying to decide if I travel with my heavier cane that folds out into a seat or if I stick with the lighter weight collapsible travel cane. If you've never needed to travel with a cane, this probably seems like a really weird thing for analysis paralysis to come in on, but the pros and cons of each make it really hard to decide which way to go. The struggle is surprisingly real. So, chronic illness life, yay. Let's see. In other news, I gave the kiddo a research project, which was really just researching 6 banks and credit unions by filling out this super easy checklist form for each of them. And it was all in an effort to help him decide, make informed decisions about where to open a youth banking account. We have different things for him, but he does not yet have a banking account with a debit card and that kind of thing. And so this summer, we've been working on money and saving and investing and learning all kinds of things. And so this was part of that. And we can't really move on to the next step of what we plan without him doing this part. And after 2 weeks of me constantly gently nudging and reminding him and constant procrastination on his side, which again prevented us from doing the next things that we wanted to be covering this summer, I finally said, look, no more online TCG Live until the research project is finished. And I really hate that sort of punishment. That's not my parenting style.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk all the time on the podcast and on our Facebook page and stuff. Like, that's not ideal. That's not the best way to homeschool and to parent and have to build a relationship with your kiddo. But let's be real. I was also incredibly frustrated by the insane number of hours he was spending on the computer, never actually finishing this relatively easy life skills project that also needed the computer. And you would have thought I'd kicked his dog. The tears and the anger and the frustration. But also, the project was done by lunch the next day. So, look, some weeks we're taking our own advice and we're killing it. And others, we're falling short of the parenting ideal we've set for ourselves. And that's reality.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's how it goes. Ironically, today, I thought I'm going to need to go open a bank account for my youngest because when I opened bank accounts for the 2 oldest, which if you followed the podcast, took me over a month, I think, to get their bank accounts open because Europe. And if I had known how horrendous that process was going to be, because my bank account wasn't that hard to open. So if I had known how horrendous this process was going to be, I would have just forced Liam to do it at the same time. And he was like, I'm good. I don't need a bank account. So last week he sold 1 Yu-Gi-Oh card for €200. And then today he sold €1,200 of Yu-Gi-Oh cards to one person. And right now all the sales go through his brother's online account and then his brother pays him out. But like the amounts are getting kind of large for them to be funneling this. And just for his own life skills, he should at this point start managing, when he had smaller stuff, it was no big deal. But I'm like, you should probably be doing this now. So yeah, back to the bank I go to open another bank account. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun.
I have to say, I have been surprised at how many banks won't allow you to
Yeah.
open a kid's account.
Yep.
I feel like back in the day when it was all in-person banking and you like went into your local bank, that most of those banks allowed
Hmm.
kids to have accounts. And I think they
Yeah.
probably still do, but there's so much that's been moved online and there's so
Hmm.
many, and the interest rates obviously are much better at the online bank accounts, generally speaking. And yeah,
Yep.
it's just like this whole thing of trying to find the ones that match like
Yeah.
quality bank and reputable and not killing the planet
Yep.
and also pay more than 0.01% interest on your money. It's that thing.
It's very
You're
limiting.
teaching it is,
Yeah.
and you're teaching
Yeah.
life skills, so it's important to make sure your kiddo looks at it, but then at the same time you also want to teach them this is how you actually go into the bank and handle things, because there are certain things you have to do in person in a
Hmm.
bank as a grown up. And if they're only with an online bank, they're not going to learn those skills while they're at home with you. And so, what things do you compromise on? It's way more difficult than I thought it was
Hmm.
going to be.
Yeah. No, it's true. And then some of them, they'll give them a debit card, but it's this horrendous restricted debit card that barely does anything. And you're like, oh my gosh, every time you turn around, you're hitting a roadblock of something that they can't do for independence because of these regulations that have been put into place. No, it's a lot. Walked that
Yeah.
mile, been there, done that. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. No, yeah, totally. Absolutely. So, if you found a great one that you absolutely love, drop a comment wherever you're listening or on social media and let us know. But anyway, today, our annual How in the World Are We Homeschooling Our Respective Kiddos This Year episode. Notice I said how in the world, not where in the world. This one is about classes and curriculum and planned learning opportunities, and definitely less about world schooling, though that is something that happens for both of us to varying degrees. We both enjoy world schooling. And look, this specific episode is not to make you feel like you need to get going on things or to make you feel like you aren't doing enough. Think of this more as a chance to check out your neighbor's recent remodel because they put their house on the market and you totally took advantage of the open house to look around
Yes.
inside.
Yeah, this is really just a chance to get a pretty good glimpse into the plan for the new academic year. Snoop if you want, take away some ideas if you think they might work for you and your kiddo. But it's also totally fine if this is more of a get ready with us homeschool style situation and long form podcast. Amanda usually has her full year spreadsheet plan finalized in early August, and that's when we do this episode. So, is your spreadsheet finalized for the year, Amanda? Are you ready?
Actually, no. I know. So I always talk about how much it helps me given
Mhm.
my chronic health issues and frequent brain fog. But this year's definitely a bit different for us. We're well into the middle school years. For anyone new here, Amanda and my family, we live in California and we've spent several years with one of those homeschool charter programs that are so popular in California, but also a very hot button issue in California. I had always planned to eventually go PSA, which again, in California, is the true homeschooling without funding or government oversight option. Anyway, I had always planned to go PSA no later than high school, not because I disagree with the A to G system, which again is one of those things for people who are in California. They're like, I totally know what that is. And if you're not in California, you're like, what the hell is she talking about? But the thing is, you lose a lot of flexibility with meeting your student where they're at when you're in a public school setting, even if it's one of those homeschool charter things, when you're working towards the A to G system. And that's required for graduating if you plan to go to college, yada, yada, yada. And for me, it just felt like, I don't know, too much busy work to meet regulations and requirements. So yeah, I always knew we'd switch. And I always just kind of kept waiting until the homeschool charter system didn't work for us anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. We really appreciated that $3,000 a year to help cover drop off programs and curriculum and things like that. It made it easier for me to not be bringing in an income to the family. So managing that paperwork and those requirements for me just felt sort of like, okay, well, that's my version of a part-time job and I'm helping cover these costs. But we've reached a point where it just doesn't really work for us anymore. The time has come. The charter we were with wouldn't pay for any of our online classes last year or this coming year. They wouldn't pay for the vast majority of our preferred curriculum. And the math programs that we wanted to use could only be done for completion, not for credit. And I was just like, that's ridiculous. They're very good math programs. And if my kiddo is going to be taking algebra in middle school, he should be getting credit for that, not just a completed pass fail kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was not okay with that. So we are officially PSAing this coming school year, and we're leaning into that change. I no longer have to align our progressive decolonized curriculum with grade level standards. The kiddo doesn't have to start the school year. The kiddo doesn't have to start the school year out with a week of standardized testing. Yeah, exactly. I-ready testing, not the regular CASP testing, but still I-ready testing. It's boring and painful and takes way too long because of the way it's adaptive. We don't have to have plenty of physical work samples to prove we're covering all of the things that we said we're covering. And so instead of starting in August with standardized testing and a full curriculum, we're going to do a slow roll into things. In fact, I'm guessing we'll finally get around to figuring out our true rhythm with all of our classes and curriculum, probably closer to October, maybe even mid-October this year, which, let's be real, the kid is super happy about. And honestly, I'm a bit grateful because it gives me time to recover from our whole Peru and Machu Picchu trip of at least a month to just rest in bed if that's what I need and get caught up on a bunch of other things before diving into a more traditional school year. So yeah, we've got a plan, I think, with the always present caveat that homeschooling is flexible and you can tweak and shift whenever things aren't working, because no matter what you plan, something isn't going to work. It's like Newton's seventh law or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So now listen, if you are new to our podcast, the Homeschool Moms Unfiltered World, a quick heads up, Megan and I homeschool very differently. Megan has often taken the scenic, winding route filled with vision boards and interest-led adventures that create a foundation for her kiddos' education. As she likes to put it, they're intentionally unschooling. And then there's us. We are also super interest-led. My kiddo has a lot of say in the curriculum we use and what we study and which things we do. But we are also academic aggressive homeschoolers, and there is no doubt that we utilize a wide variety of carefully selected curriculum and resources. But with that said, why don't you kick us off, Megan, and let us know what's on tap, what's hopefully planned for your unschooling teen crew this upcoming year?
Yeah. Ironic that you bring up vision boards because I mentioned my background has changed because it's a work in progress. And this white kind of foam cork, this is a vision board in transition. This was my sewing vision board, but now that this is now a workspace, it will have to become a new vision. Yeah.
Of course.
You're on target there. Yeah. Yeah. So this year is going to be different from previous years in a lot of ways. So I'm thinking we'll start with my baby, quote unquote, and work our way up from him because he's my most traditional homeschooler in the sense of he's still technically homeschooling. The other ones are big and graduated and doing their thing. So they definitely have learning goals for the year and growth plans and things like that, but not in the traditional homeschooling sense. So kiddo number 3, Liam, for anybody who doesn't know, he's 2 months shy of 15. He's ADHD and he likes to live in a world that is black and white. There's got to be no ambiguity, no gray area whatsoever in his life. If you make plans with Liam for 4 p.m., he will be standing by the door with his shoes on and his bag over his shoulder at 3:50 p.m. And if you do not make it out the door by 4 p.m., you will be hearing about it for the rest of the day and possibly into future days and future excursions, even 2 months from now. If you're running late, it'll be like, well, this is like the last time when you weren't ready on time. So it is not really surprising that this child likes a predictable school year plan with a learning map that goes from A to B to C to D and so on. So I have mentioned in previous episodes that he recently committed to a really, really big shift in his education. He had been working with an outschool teacher for years and years who he absolutely loved, but last year was really rough. And a huge part of that was really just our move to Europe. The teacher's still amazing. Liam still loved him, but the time zone situation was harsh. He's a lifelong insomniac, and he has just a much smaller window throughout the day where he's feeling energized, where his ADHD meds are working and he's not exhausted, and how he slept the night before is a huge factor in how his day goes and all of that. And so there's really kind of this sweet spot during the middle of the day, and none of his classes were hitting it as a result of our time zone change. So this year, he is now working with a quote unquote new tutor. He had previously been working with this tutor for physics. So she's not new, but she's new for math. Okay. And so he started with her for math over the summer. He's been doing Introduction to Number Theory, Art of Problem Solving with her. So this year he'll be with her for Honors Physics 2. He did Honors Physics 1 last year, and Art of Problem Solving Pre-Calc with her. And because he absolutely despises writing in every form, and I have tried tutoring and group classes, and everything we've tried has been a complete bust, she incorporates writing research papers and mathematical proof papers into his math and science life. So it all gets worked in together, and he's with her one-on-one every single day, and she's ADHD as well, so I don't have to ask for accommodations. She gets him. Their communication works. It's a beautiful thing. Beyond that, my biggest goals for him for the year are really to get him back into a place of saying yes more to doing outings, which will involve him needing to swim through a sea of sensory issues in order to do that. So that's going to be really, really time consuming and require a lot of strategy on my part, a lot of mental and physical energy on his part, a ton of discussions leading up to things and preparation and contingency plans and things like that. But our outing goals, my outing goals, who are we kidding? He's like, our goals? These are not my goals. My goals. Museums. We have some great museums in town that we haven't been to or that he hasn't been to, generating some new curiosity, living a broader, fuller life. And a huge part of that stems from the fact that because his schedule has been so wonky for the last year, he was really living life just to go to classes because he was reserving all his energy for the end of the day, knowing that he was going to be tired in class. And so I'm like, well, now that we've got that sorted out, you can live in addition to school. But we're going to have to do some sensory work to get back out into the world after not having as much world time as he probably should have last year.
Because he's like, I was fine with just living for class and school. That's good. Math and some science. That works for me, Mom.
Yeah. And he's like, I go to Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know what else you need me to do. And sometimes I even go to Pokemon. What else do you want from me? I'm fine. So I'm like, more than that. Thank you very much. So yeah. Okay. Then I have Astrid, who's 17, almost 17 and a half. So she has two big pathways planned for the year. The first is that she's starting university in October, and that'll be a big adjustment as far as energy and available time. Now, she already has a 2-year degree in fashion, and the program she's starting in October is also fashion. Her 2-year degree was an online degree. This one is all in person. She had an amazing 2-year program, but being in person is going to make such a huge difference. Like, I think the growth trajectory is going to be so much different. It's going to be amazing. So I do have some experience from her previous 2-year program, like how this goes, where a lot of it was largely project based. So it would kind of ebb and flow. And she's very, very good with time management and project management. Holy cow. But the end of the semester was always just absolutely bonkers for her, where she would sleep for days after her final presentation and just collapse into full noodle mode after so many weeks of intense work, because it would kind of build all semester like a crescendo. So I don't really know how this program is going to go as far as outside of her class times, how much time she needs to commit, how much work there's going to be, how much time she'll be on campus versus working at her own studio. So I'm just not making any other plans for her really beyond that until I kind of get a feel for how that goes, so that that can obviously be her top priority. But when she gets into the thick of it and I have an idea of how that's going to go, I'll have a better understanding of what the next couple of years will look like because this is a 3-year degree program. So all good. But I'm super glad she's staying local. She'll be home every night, all snug as a bug in her bed. So I'm excited about that. But she'll still have the opportunity to go and spend her days with other creatives who have similar interests. And one of the big things that she loved about this university in particular was they're really big on cross-pollinating between departments. So they really encourage interdisciplinary connections. Like if she's a fashion major, they want them working with the photography students. Like, hey, I have this new piece. Can we set up a shoot? They do runway shows where they can show off their creations for the semester or whatever. And they want them working with the graphic design students to create a program that matches the mood of their collection. And so she was pretty pumped about being able to connect with other creatives even outside of fashion, which she was excited about. Her other big pathway for the year is working on a learning journey that she has outlined for herself. It's a completely interest-led journey where she wants to weave with super, super, super fine fibers, way thinner than human hair levels of fibers. And so she has a whole list of fibers that she's created that she wants to analyze and experiment with. Very few weavers work with fibers that are this thin. And so in other aspects of weaving, there's communities you can go to or people that you can chat with about advice on how to do this, that, or the other thing. And for these fine fibers, there's very little information that exists out there. And there's a lot to weaving. You might not necessarily think about it, but if you've ever touched 5 different cotton fabrics and all 5 of them feel different, even though they're all made of cotton, a ton of the difference between them has to do with how they were woven. When they were on the loom, if the strands of yarn were really, really close together, they're all squished in there, you're going to get a less drapey fabric versus a more drapey fabric, etc. And so when you set up the loom, you need to take all of that into consideration. The planning, the calculations, all of that stuff directly leads to the outcome of the fabric. So she's planning to do a combination of weaving samples with these various fibers and then also see what happens when she manipulates different variables as far as weaving is concerned. And then beyond that, she wants to look at them through magnification and take photos and analyze height and width and length and poof. And that's not the right term, but how much loft is in each fiber and all that kind of stuff. So her goal, once she's done with that, is to write a book that's kind of like my journey with ultrafine fibers and share her process and her hypotheses and the outcomes and the data and the photos. So that's her plan. In fact, while we were recording, I got a text message from my brother-in-law that I haven't opened, but it said photo. And I'm like, I have the feeling it's some camera equipment that she ordered that she'll be picking up. I had texted him because some of it was expensive. And so I was like, I have a box coming today and a box coming tomorrow. Porch pirates, could you just keep an eye, please? Because if this microscope gets stolen off your porch, she's going to be really sad. So yeah. And then she also has some magazine projects and contracts and all sorts of stuff over the next year because that's how she contributes towards the rent for her art studio that she works out of. A couple of them are partner projects where she'll work with other artists where one of them, she's partnering with an artist out of England who's going to spin the fiber and dye the fiber, and then she's going to weave, and then they'll co-write the articles together. So she keeps busy. I mean, keeping up with her is a full-time job in and of itself.
Talk about an understatement. She keeps busy.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm like, I'm exhausted just listening to you. There are times, and by that, I mean, there's a time right now. She's working on a project that I know I've been told about, and it's a bag. I know it's a bag. I don't know what it's for, but I'm in so deep. It's kind of like when you've talked to somebody 15 times and you still don't know their name, but now you're in too deep to ask I'm in too deep to be like, what is this bag for? Is this for a specific thing that I was supposed to know about? I'm rolling with it right now. But she's got so many projects sometimes that I'm like, So she's on top of it. So I'm just rolling with it. Yeah. Yeah. Then I have my 18-year-old who is fully graduated. I've talked before about the fact that he's not entirely sure what he wants to do with his life. And I'm totally okay with that because plenty of grown-ups don't either. And so he's been exploring different areas to eventually have his path reveal itself to him. So he's good. Like he did a coding class with Johns Hopkins over the summer. He took a couple of classes in the spring. He likes them. They're all interesting. He commits to them. He does well. And then he's like, that was fun. Now I'd like to go learn something new. So, we're very much in that stage. And I'm just, again, rolling with it. It's okay. He's only 18. He has plenty of time. In the meantime, he has 2 big focuses for the year. And the first is teaching Pokemon. So he already leads online classes and has now started some in-person classes as well. He had some the other day with a whole group of homeschool kids who are here and doing enrichment activities for them. And then when he gets back from his upcoming trip to the US, he's planning to work on some Pokemon themed learning resources and digital downloads and things like that. So that'll be fun. He's excited about that. And then his other goal for the year is to expand into some different trading options. He has an investment account that he already manages. He's been managing that for a while, but his personality type lends itself to slower, less risky trades. That's just his personality in general. I often say he's like the human equivalent of Mr. Snuffleupagus, where he just kind of goes along and does his thing and he doesn't get riled or anything. He's a very slow and steady kind of human. And that's totally fine. We need all personality types. Just because it's not my personality type, totally fine. So my goal with my kids is never to force them to be something that they're not, or force them to be so far out of their comfort zones that they are just uncomfortable on a level that's unbearable and that it's really taking away from who they are as a person. But I do like to encourage a bit of growth just outside their comfort zone. If he were in his late 40s and inching closer to retirement, I'd be like, yeah, those are great trades for you. But he's not. He lives at home. He pays no rent. He's 18. I'm like, you can afford to function in a bit of a riskier fashion. And I feel like that's an important way to grow, because I feel like that sort of plasticity of thinking has a way then of trickling over into other areas of your life and decisions beyond just trading, stretching and taking risk and knowing when it's okay to take risk or when it's safe to take a risk and when it's not, and making calculated risks. So he and I will be walking through that journey together this year. For me, it's much more about the growth mindset than about making money. He just likes trading and likes investing and he's good at it. So that's the modality to use for growth mindset. But he can travel more. He has a goal. He hasn't figured out if it'll be a this year goal, meaning 2026, 2027. Or 2027, 2028. But he wants to go in one calendar season year for Pokemon. He wants to do a major tournament on every continent. So I was like, okay, well then the riskier trades, pal, you'll get there faster. So I love traveling with them and making new friends and experiencing new things with them. But as a result of Astrid's time commitment right now with school and that variable kind of being there, we don't have any travel coming up or anything like that. One of my closest friends from high school just moved back to Europe because she's also married to a brown immigrant. I know the feeling. And they were like, it's time for us to go. So she's an Irish citizen. They've just moved back. So we might go to Ireland at Christmas time when Astrid's out of school. But yeah, generally we're going to let her settle in and do her thing. And if the boys want to zip around all over the place, going to play Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh here and there, I'm all for it. They're welcome to do that. So beyond that, for Aiden, we've talked about him applying for a summer camp position next year, maybe something with a program like Boundless Life. We looked at those this year, but again, human equivalent of Snuffleupagus. We found them too close to the application dates. We didn't have time to really sit with those thoughts and marinate on those thoughts. And so we're going to marinate on it for the upcoming year and prepare for next year. So yeah, we'll work on building him a resume together. And he likes his comfort zone, and I get that. But my role, I feel, as a parent is he's building these bridges into adulthood, is to just present those opportunities still for him to be stretching and trying new things and knowing that he can do that. So that's what we're working on. All right. So phew. That's the story from my end. We don't do the whole curriculum thing in the sense that you do, but I had 3 kids to cover. So I was like, okay, I can't take an hour and a half to do this. Let me try to get through this quickly while still giving a fair understanding. So I'm going to toss it over to Amanda momentarily to share all of the awesome stuff that she has planned for this year for her kiddo. It'll be a totally different recap than what I just did. Not better, not worse, just totally different. So if you're like, okay, there was a lot missing from hers, you'll probably like Amanda's better. But here's what I'm going to say before Amanda goes into curriculum land with all of her fun programming selections for the school year. This is not, I'm going to write down everything Amanda says and buy type of situation, because you don't know a ton about Amanda's kid, even though she shared it over 200 episodes. We know nothing about your kids because we've never met you. Okay. So going to a Facebook group and saying, what are we using for 6th grade science is really no different than Googling science curriculum, homeschool curriculum for 6th grade science. It's really no different, even though it's coming from a person. So it feels more reliable somehow or more personal somehow. It's not, because They don't know anything about your kid. You don't know anything about their kid, all of the above. And your kiddo's future is way too important to make decisions off of things Amanda's about to tell you or things random strangers in Facebook groups are about to tell you. If you are looking for solid strategic ways to choose curriculum, we have got all of those tools for you. That's not today's episode. Today's episode is insights and fun and a get ready with me type of thing. We've written a book that lists out curriculum options and talks about who each one is good for. And then there's a curriculum checklist in there where you can weigh that curriculum against your non-negotiables, the way your kid learns, your family's goals, your learning philosophy, so that it's personal to you. We have online courses that do the same thing. So if a video and a workbook is more your jam over a book, we've got that too. You can book a session with Amanda if you're like, I am paralyzed and cannot make a decision. Book a session with Amanda. I will tell you right now, because of her chronic illness and just life, she doesn't have a ton of sessions available. So if you see a session and you want to go to Amanda, grab it. I have a cohort coming up this year where we're going to be working together throughout the entire school year. I will put information in the show notes about it. I have 3 spaces left. They might still be available when this episode airs. Check the show notes, okay? I've already added an extra session to accommodate more people, so those are the final 3 spaces. So hopefully they're still available when this airs and I haven't just fibbed to you. We have our Patreon community. We have a Q&A session every single month. You can come ask us questions about homeschool curriculum where we can ask follow-up questions to really make sure that the thing that we're suggesting fits and we're not just throwing names at you, because most of the time it's really well intentioned, but people in the comment section on Facebook, they're like art of problem solving this or Beast Academy that or all about spelling. And that's great. That worked for their kid, but their kid isn't your kid. And you don't know enough about their kid to be like, oh, well, our kids are similar enough that I feel like that's a trustworthy recommendation. So please, we know it's hard when you're new and you're like, where the heck am I supposed to start? And you find this Facebook group and you go do this thing, but that is not the place to build your kiddo's education from. We have really solid, strategic, intentional resources for you to do that. So check the show notes, go visit our website, homeschoolmomsunfiltered.com. Send us a message on social media. If you're overwhelmed and you're not sure what to do, we will point you in the right direction. Okay. So,
well, and also the thing is, it's not just about whether or not it works for your kid. So much of it is about whether or not it works for your family. Your entire family plays into which curriculum you pick and which learning styles you lean into. And if you don't get really clear about those things, recommendations are just not going to be great. I mean, it's like throwing darts at a board and being like, oh, that'll work. There are lots of great curriculum out there. But you have to be really clear about what your kiddo needs, what your family needs, what you can implement together and actually have success with together. And that takes a lot more of depth and detail.
There's a lot of nuance to it for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I envision sticking your hand on a fishbowl and picking out a piece of paper and being like, this is what we're doing. And it's like, that's not how to educate your child. So yeah.
That reminds me, I always think of the date night things or the family adventures, and people are always like, everyone writes down ideas and they put them in a thing and then you pull one out to do it. And it's like, okay, in theory, that's a great idea. But when you pull one out and then you're like, that takes a lot of work. And also it's 97 degrees outside and I don't want to go for an 8-hour hike today. Details matter.
Yeah. All right. So without further ado, let's hear Amanda's curriculum palooza for the 2026-2027 school year.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to start by saying that for us, we're taking a pretty decent size step back this year and not doing nearly as much as we did last year or even the year before that. It's middle school for us. Kiddo is 12, technically going into 7th grade. Maybe we'll officially advance him a grade, but that's a whole other discussion and podcast episode. But whatever we do, this is a great year to be a little less aggressive with our academics. Now, that said, you're probably going to listen to my plan for the upcoming year and be like, the fuck? She said she was slowing things down. That's not slowing things down. Okay. So in case you're new or you're like, oh, I thought she had said that they were like this and that, but that doesn't really seem. I'm going to quickly run through what we did last year. So we had art of problem solving, pre-algebra. For social studies, we did history with Modern History Bridge from Pandia Press. And because it is still a super Eurocentric and whitewashed curriculum, we added in anywhere from 2 to 5 novels every lesson to make sure that it was more well-rounded. Then we also did geography, current events, health and nutrition, and daily TED Ed videos to round that out. And for science specifically, we did Science Mom Physics 1 and 2. For ELA, we did basically double everything: grammar, vocabulary, writing, novel studies, and poetry. We used Michael Clay Thompson, which my kiddo loves, but is really deep, but also very high level. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you're familiar with educational styles, it's a classical education style with a lot of Socratic method. So that should help give you an idea of what exactly I'm talking about. And then we did all of the Hearth and Story for level 6 because it's a great curriculum, short, easy, bite-sized lessons that my kiddo always enjoyed. And it gave actual practical practice, I guess, review, like the actually doing, like the stuff that we were talking about in Michael Clay Thompson. You're actually doing it with Hearth and Story. So then we also did a weekly creative writing class, twice weekly informational text comprehension work on IXL because that was required by our charter school. Then for electives, we did at least twice a week. We had Spanish, there was a class and a discussion group. We had art multiple times a week, chess multiple times a week, typing or keyboarding, music, and PE, again, because that was officially required and had to be documented weekly. Plus, he went to at least 2 outside things a week. It started with a weekly all-day drop-off class. And when he decided he didn't want to do that anymore, we moved to things more like chess club, in-person chess club, and in-person chess tournaments, in-person Pokemon tournaments, Dungeons and Dragons group at our local library, and occasional group field trips that pop up and like, oh, that's interesting. So look, kid was doing a lot, way more than necessary. You do not need to listen to that and be like, oh my God, we're not doing enough. My kid enjoys it and he picks the things. He was generally very happy and didn't want to cut any of the things that I would have been open to cutting. So that was just sort of our standard day-to-day last year. With all of that said, what are we doing differently this year? Well, if you listen to us regularly, you know that math last year was a total roller coaster. My kiddo loved Beast Academy in elementary school. He didn't love art of problem solving nearly as much, which, let's be honest, that is totally to be expected. Pre-algebra textbooks aren't nearly as fun as gamified elementary math, no matter how challenging it was. It wasn't that my kiddo couldn't do the AOPS math. It was just that it took so much more time and effort and became this near constant point of tension in our homeschooling. But also, he did not want to switch, no matter how many times I brought up the fact that I thought trying something else and just seeing if maybe it was a better fit might be a good thing for him and for us. He was just not open to it. And like I said, we try to do a lot of child-directed, child-led decision-making. So we muddled through for the whole year. But this summer, I did basically force him to try Think Well pre-algebra. He didn't really need pre-algebra, but there were a couple of concepts within it that AOPS hadn't covered very well, in my opinion. So he used those to brush up on a few things, and he really liked Think Well. So we're going to go ahead and try it for algebra this coming year. I will say, for anyone who is thinking about that, my biggest concern is that most people say the pacing is 4 to 5 days a week at 1 to 1.5 hours a day. And I'm not cool with that level of time commitment. That's a lot of freaking time on math. And my kiddo's not going to do very well with that much either. I feel like there's no good reason for a middle schooler to be spending that much time on math every day unless they're super passionate about it and that's what they want to go into and do.
Mhm.
And my kid is not that. I mean, he likes math. He's good at math, but it's not a passion for him. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to try it for the year. We'll see if the pacing just doesn't work. We don't have to do it for the whole year. We talked about it all the time. We talk about this on the podcast that you can tweak when you realize it's not working. So we're going to try it. We'll see how it goes.
Mhm.
So we are going to go ahead and do Science Mom Biology this year. I was really on the fence about whether or not we even do a proper science curriculum this year. I just don't necessarily feel like it's needed given everything we've done up to now. But my kiddo really enjoys Science Mom. To an extent, I don't fully understand, but that's a whole other conversation. And I want him to be able to get through all of her science courses because it's just a real highlight for him. There will be days where I'm like, you don't have to do science. And he's like, oh, but I want to. And I'm like, if you're whining because you want to do a class, I suppose do the class.
Mhm.
Like, go ahead. I was just trying to take something off of your plate. So he's doing it for fun and at his own pace.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. It's not really tied to any learning objectives for us just because he wants to keep doing her stuff. And I don't know how else you say like you're doing it right than to have a kid who's like, but I really don't want to miss out on this class. Like, okay,
Yeah.
fine, I guess. Go on with your bad self. ELA this year is going to look very different for us. So last year we did everything twice. I wanted to basically drop ELA. Kiddo does not want to completely drop ELA for the year. So we agreed that we will do the Michael Clay Thompson level 5, the lens 1 is what it's called. But we're going to do it slowly, as in like, it's okay if we only get halfway through it this year.
Mhm.
And instead of focusing on a curriculum at home, we are shifting to online stuff for the rest of our ELA. And I say that there's a lot of it that's not going to be covered. That's like a traditional ELA, but he's going to be doing 2 book clubs. They're pretty different types of book clubs this year. One with online G3 and one with Dayla learning. I don't actually know how you pronounce it. Dayla learning. And yeah, he'll continue with his creative writing class through Jackson Pierce's wordplay company. He really enjoys that. So we'll let him keep doing that. He'll get some regular writing, research academic type writing from one of the book clubs. It includes some of that. And then he tends to want to do writing more around history because that's kind of his jam. We are right now actively looking for a few teachers that kiddo just vibes well with, that he can start consistently taking online classes with. So when we get to college application time, we've got some really solid options for reference letters.
Mhm.
So we're early because he's only in middle school. I fully realize that, but we're going to start trying out a few different providers kind of each semester, each year in hopes that we find someone that's really like, all right, these are our people. And these are the ones that in 2 or 3 years, we want to be able to ask for a solid reference letter. Okay. So for social studies, we covered so much last year with literally my kiddo reading at least a dozen books a month, all historical fiction and nonfiction, own voices and decolonized stuff from around the world to support our otherwise subpar curriculum. So this year, we're going to skip a set curriculum for social studies. We're going to start in September, actually, with the Homeschool Moms Unfiltered unit study about 9/11, because it's going to cover 9/11, but then it's going to go into all of the policy things and stuff like that that came out of 9/11. And we need that next step in understanding around 9/11. Obviously, we've covered it, but he's old enough, it's time to go deeper. Then after that, we're probably going to work through the US history series that we actually put out. I'm sure it's stuff my kiddo is going to be interested in. He's going to find it really fascinating, and it will set us up nicely for some deep dives and interest-led learning around the midterm elections coming up this year. So we're just kind of stacking and building this create your own unit studies style American education stuff leading into the midterms. December and January will be a bunch of World War I and II history, not because I love it, but because we are going to actually be in England, Normandy, the Netherlands, and Belgium. I'm sure we'll go to some location-specific history things and social studies type stuff while we're there and traveling and learning and doing things. Then when we get home, we're going to switch back to general unit studies type things for history. Again, there are several that we, as in Homeschool Moms Unfiltered, have put out that we, as in my kiddo and I, just haven't gotten around to doing yet. So we'll do some of those. We'll do some of the smaller unit studies from Mint and Bloom, like their ICE one, their Palestine one, and I just saw there's a new one that's war in Iran. So we'll definitely do some of those this year just for broader understanding and current events, kind of just tying all of that together, the history, how we got here and where we are now. So yeah.
I didn't realize they had put out a war in Iran unit study. We follow them on social media, but the stupid algorithm to decide what you see and what you don't. But that should be a really interesting one. It was interesting because my book club that I've been leading for years and years, we had scheduled to read The Lion Women of Tehran earlier this year when there was uprising going on in Iran. And so it was just so interesting that we had read this book. And so it was topical. We kind of kept circling back to it with current events throughout this semester. But Mint and Bloom, I love though. In 2024, they put out a great series of unit studies before the presidential election. And so if they put out a midterms one, that would be pretty amazing. That would be pretty awesome. We'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that would be nice if they put that together. Maybe a tracker of sorts so kids can actively track election results as they come in with some details around what's at stake and why it matters. All right, so listen, people behind Mint and Bloom, if you're listening to this podcast, we put it out there in the universe. We, the people, we want this resource. Like they care that much about what we have to say. But so, yeah. Anyway, for me, for my family, Amanda and my kiddo, that just leaves us with the extras and electives. We'll continue with Spanish. That's the language that he wants to learn. And I feel strongly about him continuing to practice and working on fluency, which takes a long time. We've got 2 online classes that we enjoy with Brianna Maldonado over on OutSchool. And then we'll be testing out some new workbooks and curriculum options for Spanish. We try new ones every year, and we really struggle to find one the kid actually likes enough to, like actually do it. The number of Spanish books we've gotten 20 to 50 pages into, and then that's all she wrote. And I just recycle it because
it's like, this isn't it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, not worth fighting over. That was not the solution. So yeah, kiddo will also continue with chess. He just informed me yesterday, actually, that he was hoping to do in-person chess club again this coming year. It's mostly for fun, but he enjoys learning new moves and strategy and things like that. So he'll take, again, some classes and probably continue with some in-person chess tournaments and things like that, which what about socialization? This is part of our plan for making sure that he's out there and doing things. The same with golf. He'll probably continue weekly golf lessons. We started that during the pandemic because we were looking for something that was physical and could be a good life skill, but could also be done in a fairly safe manner. And so he takes these small, like 4 kids to a class lessons at the golf course. And it's always outside and there's always a breeze and things like that. We're still very COVID cautious for my health. So I appreciate that. You laugh. Do you not always have a breeze at your golf courses?
No, I was laughing about the fact that when Liam was looking for activities when he was younger, at one point he was like, can I play soccer? Now, we lived in Miami. Of course, there was soccer's freaking everywhere because there's so many Venezuelans and Colombians and other South Americans, Central Americans, but it's 9,000 degrees in Miami and grass makes me itchy and it's very humid. And at that particular juncture, when he asked, I didn't want to sweat to death in the sun. I'm covered in freckles and I'm Irish. Like, I was like, dude, this is not a spectator sport for me. And I was like, oh, I don't think they're having it this session. I'll check again for the next session. And then he found something else to do in the meantime. So I was laughing because had there been a breeze, maybe I would have signed him up.
Maybe.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, When he was younger, when we first started and he was a peanut, I definitely stayed for all of the lessons, but he's old enough now. I can just drop him off and go back and pick him up. Sometimes we go to the 19th hole diner right there and have a brunch afterwards. It's a thing. It's fine. Oh, and I will say we did just decide that he's going to join Aiden's Pokemon Player Roundtable.
How
Yeah, so he had been on the fence about whether or not he wanted to do actual classes around Pokemon, but Aiden's offering this new weekly discussion group where they get together and they discuss the tournaments from the past weekend and interesting additions to the decks and surprising tactics that people used the previous week. And look, my kiddo loves that kind of stuff. And
so does
I
Aiden. Yep.
can, yeah, I cannot pretend to care that much. Like there's a limit on how much I can be like, really? They switched that card out in the Alakazam deck. Wow. And how did that work out? Like, is that a second level, second tier? So I don't know, Uh,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. My boys have each other and they do that all day long. But yeah, if it was landing on me, I'd be in the same exact position. So yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. And I mean, look, it's still probably a lot, but it feels good to not be worried. We're taking a step back. We're not worried about whether or not we're meeting our lesson plan objectives per our oversight teacher and whether or not our work samples are from approved curriculum or I accidentally have a worksheet from something that they haven't approved. And so now we have to quickly redo something. We don't have to deal with any of that. And I'm really optimistic that we'll have more time and flexibility for interesting things, museum trips and random adventures and interesting talks or lectures that I see online or wherever that kind of pops up and volunteering. He needs to be doing more volunteer work for an honor society that he's in and he has to keep that up. And instead of having to try to schedule it around our academics, hopefully we're going to have time to do it as just part of our life. So yeah, I guess tune in a couple of months and see if it's really going the way I plan or if it's crashed and burned, because that's also possible.
It's always possible. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm so excited. You're going to have this new chapter of freedom. The other stuff was working for you for a long time, so it was fine. But now that it's not, you're going to be able to shift and have a new adventure that's going to feel so different. So it's going to be kind of fun. I did laugh a little bit because you included all of your electives and I did not include like Liam's totally in chess and all that kind of stuff. But it's so funny because it goes to how differently we homeschool. To me, that's not part of school. That's just living life. I only included stuff that landed squarely in what I consider academia in my review. But yeah, my kids totally play Pokemon. They play Yu-Gi-Oh! Liam's in chess club. He's really excited to be back in chess club. Actually, he had a schedule conflict for a while for this one chess class, which I crack up because he's ranked higher than the teacher, but he likes the teacher. And so he goes all the time. And I found him a teacher who was amazing, who could actually teach him stuff. And he was like, not as much fun. I'm like, okay, go to the one that's fun then. I mean, that's what it's all about. So I'm like, have the best time ever. But yeah, so obviously my kids have fun and electives too. I just didn't include them because we look at the division between learning and life very differently between us. And again, not better, worse, right, wrong, just different. You told everybody at the beginning it was going to be that way. So
yeah, that's it. And also too, if you're listening and you're one of those people that's like, I really want to do unschooling or I really want to lean more in interest-led learning, but I don't know how to make sure that we can record all of the hours we're required, or how do I make sure I can fill out a transcript? It's important to remember that those things could be a class in a regular school. I had the chance to learn chess in my talented and gifted class in middle school. I chose not to. My kiddo is doing chess. And so I would happily put that on a transcript. And Megan could too. She's trying to put something together and that she doesn't think in terms of transcript until it's time to put the transcript together, or when she's doing her backwards planning and like, okay, how does this all fit in there? Right. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it can absolutely go on a transcript.
yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah. And I mean, if your kiddo is doing in-person stuff and having to navigate, sometimes there's disputes about moves or whatever the case might be. There's so much involved beyond just chess. And that could be with any activity. There's stuff like that that's going to go on. So yeah.
Well, yeah. And winning and losing. I find especially in chess, they have to be a good loser and a good
Mhm.
winner. I have yet to see at a chess tournament where a kid wins and they'll jump up and fist pump the air and knock the chair back while they have their celebration. That's frowned upon. But those
Mhm.
are life skills to be able to
Yep.
graciously win and graciously lose. And
Mhm.
it's nice for them to be able to practice it with someone not you, because it's a lot harder to
Mhm.
always be gracious with your safe people.
Mhm. Yeah, no, there's tons of learning involved in that. And
Yeah.
if you need it for hours or documentation, you can use it. So
Yeah.
we hope you also have an amazing homeschool year. And we hope it goes kind of sort of according to plan. But if it doesn't, just know that you're always allowed to shift. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. You don't have to suffer through stuff that isn't working. And if you need help figuring out how to shift, come talk to us. That's what we're here for. So we shall end today with a mantra like we always do, just a little bite sized piece of inspiration or wisdom or whatever you need to carry on and keep going.
Yeah.
So,
Life raft to get you through the week.
exactly. Yeah. So it is homeschooling gets a lot less overwhelming when you stop asking, what is everyone else doing? And start asking, what actually makes sense for my child? Yeah, you get to
Yeah.
build it and we can help you if you need help. We're not just going to be like, build this perfect, idyllic world for your child. Have a great day. We
Yeah.
have built the tools, we have built the resources. We ourselves are available. So you can do that. But asking what other people are doing, who cares? Amanda and I are doing something totally different. I don't feel like I need to do her plan. She doesn't feel like she needs to do my plan because what she's
Yeah.
doing is working for her family and her kid, and what I'm doing is working for mine. And they're all going to end up in great places. So it's totally fine. So you don't have to worry about what other people are doing. You're good.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, friends. Happy homeschooling. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah. Have a great one.